Good morning. It is a second line day. Second lines. What do we know about second lines? They have the major keynote of being a hermit, of course. This is one of the big things that we say about them, and also the mastery. They're very easily able to learn things. They're not like the first line that needs to dig in and investigate. The second line picks things up quite quickly. So today maybe we can master something that we've been toying with, and we can show our natural abilities. Or maybe we'll just want to withdraw and be quiet, I mean, this is also all part of it, isn't it? Maybe we feel a bit shy today, or maybe somebody calls us out for something and we respond by being shy. Or we respond by embracing what it is that we're really good at. All of these things are second line qualities. I'm a 2-4. Which is why I'm saying I and we, because you might not have that, of course. So a major keynote for the second line, as I say, is the hermit. So this might be a day when we'd rather just be alone. Well, it's that sort of, Greta Garbo, wasn't it? Just I want to be alone. Yeah, we can motivate ourselves within our aloneness. This is very possible. We can spend the day just pottering around, doing a little bit of this, doing a little bit of that, naturally moving from one thing to another. It can be quite playful. There can be, I don't know, just a gentle quality. I suppose you could say it's an innocent quality, given that we're in gate 25 at the moment. Look at how children are in their world. 1 minute they've got the screaming heebie-jeebies, and then the next minute they're just playing quietly in the corner, or they're giggling over something, and they go seamlessly from one thing to another. And this is a sort of a graceful way that maybe we can bring this innocent energy into our lives today. Now remember that our second line is brought to us through the transit field today. So if we are not a second line profile, it doesn't mean that today we're a second line profile. It's not that at all. It's more that we can embrace the qualities, we can experience the qualities like we would with any conditioning that comes through, when it comes either through the planets, through the neutrino stream. It can become very mind stuff. Otherwise, if we start saying, I have to act in a certain way because I'm second line today, and that's obviously not how it works. Earlier this morning, about 2.5 hours ago, which is what would have been about 07:28 in GMT, we went into the second line of gate 25, and this line is called the existentialist. There's a lifetime learning with this. Excuse me, and the lifetime learning says dedication and devotion to the now. This is an unusual second line, so it doesn't particularly mention withdrawal or shyness or any of those usual keynotes that we expect. But Ryle talked in this gate, in the line companion, he talked about the need to educate our second lines. And there's a question sometimes around why. Why do we educate them particularly? And it's really because they're so visible in the world. They're there. If you look at the analogy of the house, they're there on the ground floor. They've got all their lights on, but it's dark outside, so everybody can see in. And, there's a kind of vulnerability to that, to the second line because of that. And whatever the window is, the gate that you are being seen through and called out through, that has that flavor to the calling out. And so what needs to come in is that when people project onto you that you're so good at something or whatever it is they're calling you out for, that second line can then be discerning. This is another keynote that can come in with the second line, is that discernment to know, is this a good call? Is there recognition here in this invitation? And is it correct for me? Because as we know, a correct invitation isn't the same as a nice invitation. They're different things altogether. Or invitation, a calling out, a projection, whatever it is, because of course it's not, the second line is not exclusively a projector gate, of course, a projector profile, of course. So it's very important to use discernment so you don't just jump into something that is ultimately not correct for you. Because sometimes just being called out is really nice, but it's, today you might get called out for something innocent. For an innocent pursuit or something innocent that people see in you. Whereas if you imagine in gate 51, there might be something quite shocking because it's the gate of shock. So the call or the projection might be around shock. So, the window that people are looking in does make a difference in how we are projected on. But this is why education is so important. And of course, we've got our strategy and authority always. So we have discernment is one tool in the box, and then strategy and authority is almost the box that holds all the other tools. Yes. Ra says in the line companion that the second lines in the love gates can be unusual in their performance of their values. And he said this particular second line, the 25-2, is particularly so. He said that it embodies the nature of what innocence really is, that it is only possible existentially in the now. There is no other way to be innocent. You can only be innocent when you are truly in this here now, and when there is no motive and no agenda and nothing else going on. Mercury is the planet in the exaltation, and we are told that when these second lines, the 25 to live in the now, when they are anchored in the now, they will get what is correct for them in that moment. Ra said that these second lines must be called out in their lifetime, but what they're called to and who calls them, well, that's in the hands of the fates. And that's where we have our strategy and authority to help us. The second line is a natural, and in the 25-2, they are naturally innocent. They're not doing innocence. There's no agenda. As he says, it's a motiveless innocence. And it's not a mental or intellectual understanding either. It's just being. And if the 25-2 is left alone, if they're just allowed to be without any motive, then they can gradually come to recognize intellectually that surrender is what enables them to really be in the now. I'm trying to use language that doesn't mean they're doing anything, because there's no doing here. It's just that surrender. And when you surrender to it and you're here now, there is no motive, there is no agenda. There is just the selflessness that goes along with this innocent gate. What else can I tell you about it? Oh, yes, it represents universal love, of course, the gate 25. And acceptance of what is, acceptance that we are all helpless here in this mechanic, in this program that's running, that we don't truly have any control as much as we might think or choose or decide or desire to be in control. It's not there. Really, we are passengers. We are witnesses to the play of life. And to surrender into that is to be truly open to the universal love that can then flow through. So Ra says all you can do really is not interfere. So it's like a not doing. You do by not doing. I think it's that called Wu Wei, something like that. So you just be here now. Mars represents immaturity as far as the planetary energies go. And it's on a journey eventually to maturity as it grows. So this is the planet in detriment. Mars is in detriment here in the 25-2. And so what we find is that there is a constant projection on the second line here of how selfless they are and how motiveless they are, and all of that kind of thing. And this actually then just brings a bit of fuckery into the whole situation, because then the 25-2 is like, oh, I'm selfless. Oh, if I'm truly selfless and I carry on being really selfless, then maybe I could be a saint one day. And so it introduces this motive into what is motiveless action in the first line, as we just saw it yesterday. And here in that sort of devotion and dedication to the now, there's no motive there. There's no action there at all. So Mars can bring this sort of this feeling in. There can also be a projection that there was always a motive. It can be that, can be the other side. So it's not that you are motiveless or selfless, but that, whatever you do, you have a motive. And that can be the projection that comes in as well, and which can be uncomfortable for that 25-2. But again, it's noticing that, and it's working with strategy and authority. And if what you're doing is correct for you, then it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. And Ra says that Mars can be really helpful here, especially in this detriment, because the second line keeps on stepping out of innocence. It comes out of the existential into wanting an experience, into having that desire for something to happen. Because it's, remember, it's no, it's not abstract, that's the 46, isn't it? But it's so it has that feeling of it, that it is not supposed to be about action. It's not supposed to have a motive. But the Mars energy will keep pulling it out of that. It will get burned, and then it will be okay, I now know to get back in. It's sort of not knowing what you've got until you've lost it, I guess, kind of thing. And remember the lifetime learning, it is that devotion and dedication to the now. It's not something that is apparent in the moment of the birth. It's something that has to be grown into. So the 25-2 has to meet the world without truly being designed or equipped to deal with the world, because second lines aren't. They're lower triagram. They're not really aware of what's going on at the other end of the channel, or even the top half of the trigram. So when they have to meet the world from that place, there is the possibility of innocence being lost, their existential nature being lost. Ra told a story. He said that he once heard about a lady who had decided to take all the detriments out of the Rave I Ching because God had told her that Ra had made a mistake, and so she was going to take all the detriments out. And he said that in the beginning he wished he hadn't used the words detriment and exaltation because of the word prejudice that exists around all those sorts of words. But he said ultimately he came to see that they challenged people's prejudices and their conditioned morality, and that wasn't a bad thing. And in his own design, he said that he learned more from those places where he had detriments than anywhere else. He found them really, really valuable. And when you can surrender to the detriment as much as the exaltation, then a deep understanding can be pulled out, especially if you look at this 25-2, for example. A deep understanding of what it means to be in the now can be pulled out of this detriment. So it's I think that as long as there is awareness around I was going to say the experience again, but around the lesson, being aware is the lesson, I suppose, for all of us in every activation, whatever gate or line it is. And things aren't so much fun when you're not aware of what's going on, when you're not aware of the mechanic. The Earth, excuse me, 46, line 2, is called the prima donna. And there's a serendipity at play here. This is the gate of serendipity. I'm going to sneeze. This is obviously the right place and the right time for me to be sneezing. Okay, it's gone away. So the prima donna, always in the right place at the right time. This is what the serendipity gate tells us. They may not know it. It may be projected onto them. But the moment that they're told this, they have this sort of energy, a lot of power comes into them because they're in the right place at the right time. And then they can become very demanding. And as this is the gate of the determination of the self, well, that determination can be very demanding. So the second line is said, you're always in the right place at the right time. And so then they become the prima donna who wants to have flowers in their dressing room, and they want to have a particular car to pick them up and take them to wherever they're going. And all of these things, the best of everything is what they want. And then they can be left alone just to get on with what they're good at and what they've mastered in their process. And there's no judgment here. Remember, this isn't good or bad. If this is what they're designed to express, as long as they are doing it from that place of correctness through strategy and authority, then great. They only have to answer to themselves. Any of us, we only have to answer to ourselves and our own strategy and authority. The other side of this is that they expect to be treated as a success before they've actually become successful. And that can be quite a difficult energy because it can be quite offensive, Ra said. And he said that because it's about the behavior becomes offensive when you've got the desire for being treated like the prima donna without actually any proof that you're worth it. And he said the secret here lies in who calls you out and what they're calling you out for. Because if the people who are calling you are correct, then your behavior isn't going to offend them. It may still be offensive, but it won't offend them. It won't matter, and so it's like you find this with managers and their stars. Sometimes it's like they can talk about their stars as if they're a complete pain in the ass, but they love them anyway. It's that sort of thing. Is like, yes, their behavior is appalling, but I don't really mind. And that's this sort of detriment energy that we get in the 46 too. And it's just one of those things with the I Ching, when you read through it and you start to pick it apart like we're doing on this journey, you really do find all of the humanity's potential experiences are here. So the moon currently is in gate 62, and then at 12:24 it moves into gate 56, and then at 11:30 tonight it goes to 31. So we're going from the logical gate of details and naming things in the 62 into the abstract gate of stimulation and storytelling in the 56, and then back to the logic with gate 31, which is about leadership and influence. So perhaps today you will find yourself feeling as though you have enough detail about something that you feel secure in that, and you're able to share it with the collective, maybe through a stimulating tale over a good lunch. And that will lead you to influencing a change in leadership. Well, why not? All of the moon gates today are in projector channels, so you might want to wait for that invitation to lunch. You might want to wait to share your details, your stories, or your invitation into leadership. Play with these keynotes, as always. It's fun. It's fun. I want to finish up by sharing a quote from Ra. Let me find where I got that. Okay, so I read this and I thought, yeah, okay, this feels very pertinent. The whole thing about design and understanding the nature of one's design is that what you're made for, this is about the 25 too, what you're made for, which is to jump out of the now, to be caught in expectation. That's what you're made for. If you live it out purely, then you get its rewards. It's not about it being a bad thing. A gate and a line are not a design. If there is no way for these energies to manifest or generate, then it will have to be recognized. It will have to be invited, because everything is contingent, ultimately, on the complete design. So when I do these transit reports, I'm taking the gates out of context. I'm just giving you the flavor of the sun and that. And it is very valuable to do that, of course, to start to build up a picture of what all of these gates are, because through the course of doing this, we touch on all of them. But it's also really valuable to look at these energies in terms of what's happening in your own design. If not the whole transit, then certainly the Sun Earth, because they give us 70% of the programming that we receive through the programming field and the neutrinos. The longer transits, those in the outer planets, the Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto energies, they're also worth looking at in the context of your own design, because they're going to be conditioning you for such a long time. And of course, not just you, all of us, the whole planet, because we're all in the same field. So when you've got something like Pluto that is years in a gate, then it's good to put that into your design to see, well, what is everybody else feeling around, and how does it hook up with my what's it here, and is it part of a stream that I've got or part of a circuit? And you build up a whole picture, and it can make a big difference. It's a bigger story than just a little snippet of, well, this is what gate 60 does, and it's just been in Pluto for quite a while. So it's quite an interesting thing. But the line that he says, or that little bit that he says there, a gate and a line are not your design. I think that's a nice way to finish. So thank you. That's the weather for today. And yeah, third line day tomorrow, but let's enjoy our second line day for now. Bye-bye.